Hi, I'm Tyler Danzel, and this is Module 16 Case Study, Internet Use Violation. So what do we already know? First of all the events in this case study took place at Roosevelt High School, which is a school in a very affluent area of a large city. It's the type of school where there's usually pretty fierce competition to be valedictorian and salutatorian. The principal is Dr. Stephen Forbes. He's been there for 9 years. 2 years ago, he was named Principal of the Year. Very respected by parents, takes a lot of pride in his school, and when hiring teachers for openings, he tries to seek out only the most highly qualified teachers. One of those teachers that he hired recently was Miss Cindy Walker. She teaches science classes, such as zoology and botany. This is only her second year, both her second year at Roosevelt and her second year in the teaching profession. And she actually obtained a master's degree before getting her first teaching job. Because of that, she's a little bit older than most beginning teachers. She's also unmarried. Her classes are very rigorous and cause a lot of stress for the students in them. Dr. Forbes has received a lot of phone calls from parents complaining about her classes. And he has worked with her to try to make her classes a little bit more student-friendly. Continuing with what we need to know, in November around Veterans Day, Miss Walker spent a weekend with her parents. And at the end of the weekend, she got back to her apartment, checked her email, and she found an anonymous message with a link to a disturbing and threatening website. She immediately contacted her principal and sent him the link. And for some reason, he did not encourage her to contact the police. He told her to hold off on doing that. He also told her that he assumed the website was a prank. He asked her to think about any students that could be responsible for this, and one of the students that immediately came up was a student named Randy Franks. Miss Walker spent that night with her parents because she was concerned about being in her apartment alone. So what do we need to know? Obviously, we need to find out who sent the email. Again, she suspected Randy Franks. We need to know if there were any unusual student discipline events that may have happened in her classes leading up to this incident. I'd like to know what other teachers have to say regarding the student, Randy Franks. I'd also like to know why Dr. Forbes kind of discouraged Miss Walker from contacting law enforcement. We'd also need to know what type of internet policy the school district has in place already, and what are the consequences for using it inappropriately. And also, we need to know if this is actually could be considered criminal, and if it even falls under the jurisdiction of the school. Also, I'd like to know, was the email that was sent to Miss Walker done with a school-issued device? So identifying the problem. Who sent the email? Was the school's internet use policy violated? Has something criminal occurred? And what can be done to improve Miss Walker's classroom management? So the next step is to develop our plan of action. The first thing I would do, and again, I was kind of baffled why Dr. Forbes discouraged her from contacting law enforcement, but to me that seems like the most logical thing to do first. Contact law enforcement to report the threat. Next, I would contact our district technology department, get them looking into it to see if they can determine who sent the email, who created the website, if school devices were used. Number 3, I'd meet with Miss Walker to discuss her classes. There's obviously some issues going on there. It would be nice to know if there were any unusual events that took place in her classes recently, possibly create a list of students who could be suspected of this, who maybe have been giving her a difficult time. But no students would be contacted until law enforcement and the district technology department have completed their investigations. And again, I'd continue to work with Ms. Walker to help her with her classes. And finally, meet with any students that were identified. We would obviously ensure that due process were followed before any significant discipline were handed down. So to promote the academic success and personal well-being of every student, again, we contact law enforcement. They will help us determine who created the site and where the email came from, and if this is actually a credible threat. And they could obviously help us if malice was truly involved in the site's creation. Again, work with the district technology department. They can determine some of the same things that law enforcement would, but they can tell us if a school-issued device were used, who sent the email, and then if the internet use policy was violated. Again, I'd continue to work with Ms. Walker to help her become a better teacher. There are some things that need to be addressed. Number one, classroom management seems to potentially be an issue. And really helping her develop better rapport with her students, I think that would go a long way. Her classes appear to be quite rigorous, but that's not really the issue, I don't believe. It appears that her rapport with her students is not real good. It might be good to put her on a formal plan of improvement. Again, Dr. Forbes has received lots of calls from parents. And once law enforcement and the technology department have determined any students that may be involved, we would like to meet with those students to discuss what's going on. And also meet with any students that Ms. Walker may have identified. When we meet with those students that she suspects, we don't want to come out and be accusatory. We want to ask them basically, do they know anything about this? If we don't have any hard evidence, I don't want to put students in a situation like that. If we can positively identify who did this, I would say we need to impose as strong penalties as allowed by law and by our school board. I don't think students can be allowed to threaten the environment of teachers. My thoughts and feelings on the issue. First of all, I thought it was inappropriate, maybe a strong word, but I thought it was inappropriate for Dr. Forbes to discourage Ms. Walker from contacting law enforcement. If she feels threatened and she feels like that's the best thing, I would not discourage her from doing that. I valued the fact that Dr. Forbes was available to his staff members on a weekend like that. The fact that she could call him up right away and explain the problem, I thought that was good. I didn't necessarily like the fact that Ms. Walker immediately accused one student. I would have asked her to slow down a little bit. But Dr. Forbes didn't really seem to do that. But I think she could have slowed down just a little bit there. Unresolved issues. First of all, we need to figure out what's going on in Ms. Walker's classes. There's obviously some issues there. Lots of phone calls from parents and now this, so we need to figure out what's going on there. What can Dr. Forbes do to assist her and make her successful? I think that's definitely an unresolved issue. This one is really probably unrelated to anything, but it caught my attention. It said in the case study that Ms. Walker's parents lived 3 hours away. On Sunday, did she really go back to stay with them that night and then go to work the next day? That seemed a little odd. And it was mentioned that Dr. Forbes only hires the most highly qualified staff members. So I found it a little bit strange that he would have hired a brand new teacher. Even though she does have a master's degree, she was a brand new teacher. So as a building administrator, I felt that I would consistently promote the academic success of every student. Number one, by recommending only the most highly qualified teachers to be hired. By visiting with parents regarding Ms. Walker and making sure that they understand that I understand their concerns. By working with Ms. Walker in a professional manner to help improve her classes and to improve her rapport with her students. And then also by keeping the investigation of these events confidential. I believe that's very, very important. So that would not affect students who may not be guilty of anything. How did I adhere to ethical principles and professional norms? First of all, by taking the threat to Ms. Walker a little bit more seriously. I don't believe Dr. Forbes did that. I would have done that as a building principal. By keeping the investigation of the events confidential. And then again, by limiting the accusations of students and waiting to speak with the students until we have actual evidence that those students may be involved. And then finally, how did I demonstrate a personal and professional code of ethics? Again, by encouraging Ms. Walker to contact law enforcement if she felt unsafe. That is something that is completely up to her. If she felt unsafe, she should contact law enforcement. Next, by, again, working with Ms. Walker to help improve her classroom management and just her classes in general. And then again, by limiting accusations of students until we have actual evidence to back up what is going on. These are the sources that I used to complete this project. And thank you for watching.